39 matches in La Liga unbeaten, beating the record set by Real Sociedad back in 1980. But they're not really celebrating that in Catalonia. Luis Suarez had this to say after the match: "We knew that the fans were angry after the Champions League elimination, and we were also hurting. Now it feels like winning the league is nothing." A real party pooper, it seems, Jules, after that surprise defeat against Rome. And even this record-breaking streak that Barca are on, of course, going to go on and win La Liga, doesn't seem to make up for it.
Yeah, you're right. It's a strange atmosphere right now, I think, at the Camp Nou at Barcelona. They didn't really see that one coming at Roma. I think it must have hurt a lot for them. And, OK, there's that record in the league. And maybe back in August, when they were thrashed by Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup, no one could see them winning the league. So maybe in the end, it would be a good season. They obviously still have the Copa del Rey as well. So it's not all bad and all gloomy. But I think that elimination in the Champions League will hurt for a long time, for sure.
What grade would you give Barca? A+ as well, surely, if you give City an A+. Well, they've won the league. They've stormed away with it. Quarter-finals of the Champions League.
As you say, 39 games unbeaten. I mean, it's a fantastic run. But having said that, it seems that the standards are a lot higher over in Barcelona. The players are disappointed. Roma played fantastic tactics against them, so they maybe caught them.
What grade, Mr. Mariner?
You've got to give them an A. You've got to do. I mean, they just trotted up with the league. I mean, and La Liga's. It's a difficult league.
Is Luis Suarez too much in the moment, Shaq? Considering,
yes,
Jules makes a great point. You think after that Spanish Super Cup, we all pretty much had written Barca off.
Yeah, nobody thought Barcelona were going to win anything at all. Maybe if the lead at the top was a little bit tighter and there was still a lot to play for, you won't feel that much and maybe feel a Champions League exit is a blessing in disguise. But again, this league won a long time ago, so the Champions League exit stings a bit more than it should. I still give them an A+, especially when you consider where we started.
You can't give an A+.
Where do you consider where we started?
Manchester City, 16 points clear of United with 5 matches to go. Let's just emphasise how impressive this campaign has been for them. 33 games they've done this. No team's ever done that in the history of the Premier League. It's the second earliest date in which it's been clinched, on April 15th. 18 wins, their longest Premier League history win streak when you take a look at their run earlier on in the season. Let's bring Julian Laurent into the show. Julian, of course, no surprise that Manchester City clinched it. Maybe slight surprise and they did it this weekend, considering United were only playing West Brom. But boy, did they deserve it.
Yeah, completely deserve it. They were by far the best team in the Premier League this season. The consistency that they've put in their performances, the intensity, the football that we've seen was outstanding from pretty much the beginning of the season until now. They've had a bit of a dip of form at times. There's that defeat, obviously the only one in the league at Liverpool earlier in the season, where they conceded 3 goals in 14 minutes to lose that match. But they've been magnificent, really, from the start, and they totally deserve it.
It's strange. The icing has been slightly taken off the cake, considering what happened, Paul, over the last week, regarding the United game and the Liverpool defeat as well.
A little bit.
Overall, what grade would you give them for their season?
Oh, man, it's got to be an A+. I mean, they've been phenomenal. The way that Pep has rotated the squad and been able to rotate the squad with the quality, and the quality that's coming from the bench, you've not really seen any drop-off. That's been one of the keys. I think Jules just said it, the consistency of the squad. You know, they obviously get around each other. They rally each other up. I mean, it epitomised for me at the weekend. We were here on Friday talking about this game being a difficult game for Manchester City against Tottenham. It wasn't. Yeah. And it was the way that they went about their business. They were absolutely fantastic in the first half. Just a little wobble at half-time when Tottenham came back in it. But really, it was such a poor one-sided contest. I was disappointed.
But considering they got knocked out the quarter-finals of the Champions League, you can't give them an A+ like him, can you?
No, I give them an A+ for what they brought to the league. In terms of league football, without question, you get an A+. I don't think we've seen a team be this dominant, play this good football, certainly in winning a title, at the very least since the Sir Alex Ferguson days. It has been disappointing what has happened in terms of the Champions League, because you knew this league was won. You knew Manchester City were going to be crowned champions, and then you wanted to see, could they really match it with the big boys? We've seen the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona win leagues playing attractive football. We've seen Bayern Munich do it. But as I mentioned, we hadn't seen an English club do it for the last couple of years. So now you wanted to see how Manchester City compared to the European greats, and to go out in the manner that they did against Premier League opposition. And I don't mean that as any kind of disrespect to Liverpool as a club, or exactly how good Liverpool were over the two legs, but you just felt that if City were going to go out, it had to be to one of the European giants. In the end, it was a very spirited Liverpool performance, and maybe took a little bit of shine off of what we've come to believe of this City team.
And of course, his second season in charge sees Pep Guardiola leading Manchester City to this record-breaking title. And it's interesting, Jules, you live in England and you take a look at his resume. There was a feeling from some, him going to the Premier League, it's like, all right, yeah, you've done it in other leagues, but now you've got to really prove yourself. We don't really accept you until you win the Prem. And they were more than happy, weren't they, to jump on him, some of his critics, last season after he ended up with no silverware. He surely silenced them this time round.
Yeah, you're right. I still remember at the end of last year, people saying he will never do it here because here is different, because of the way that the opposition plays every single time, because he can't put his football in place in the Premier League. It wouldn't work here. It's so different, blah, 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 blah. He showed them. I mean, I think he's one of the managers who have revolutionized the game, like Arrigo Sacchi, for example. He's one of those who, came and just changed everything. And we saw the way City have played. We've never seen anyone play like this in England ever before. Not even the Wenger Invincibles, not even the great United treble under Ferguson, not even before that Liverpool and Shankly and all of that. No one has never played like that before. That kind of new, incredible football, the positioning, the movement off the ball, on the ball, everything was just so amazing. And I think he showed all the critics especially that he could do it here as well.
You've watched football since it was in black and white, Paul. Is Jules a bit over the top?
With Guardiola and what he's done?
Consider this is Manchester City team, that we've never seen anything like this.
Well, you cast your mind back to the Arsenal Invincibles. You cast your mind back to Fergie Scholes' team.
Were they as attractive? Were they as...
I think they were as attractive, yeah, I really do. I think that, it's very difficult to reinvent the wheel with football, but I understand what he's done with this, the total football, building from the back and so on and so forth. But we did see him come unstuck, as Shaq says, against Liverpool, who went in with a high press and they couldn't handle it. So I do think he has, to a certain degree, revolutionised the way that we're looking at football now. Because when we look at Manchester United, when we look at Arsenal, when we look at the also-rans in the Premier League, we're judging them with that level that Guardiola's brought to the Premier League. Yeah. And that's what we want to see now. So we're saying, OK, yeah, he spent hundreds of millions of pounds, but it's a product on the field. I mean, no, the money's, it's just so ridiculous. There's no real need to bring that into the equation. It's what he's brought to the table, improving players. I think the players that he's signed are getting better and better and better.
In my opinion, I don't think we've seen a team this good. And yes, I do remember Ferguson's teams. I do remember the Invincibles. I think one of the differences, which maybe sets that late 90s team apart, and Sir Alex Ferguson apart to this point, is how he was able to balance what you needed to do in the league and what you needed to do in Europe. And that Pep Guardiola hasn't gotten right just yet. Maybe you have to take your foot off the accelerator a little bit in the league to achieve some of the things that you saw those Manchester United teams do. Until Pep Guardiola can find that balance, I'm still going to give those Manchester United teams, though at their best I feel this is more attractive football, I'm still going to give those Manchester United teams the nudge.
Jules, is this the start of an era now in which we're going to see Manchester City dominate the Premier League?
It will be fascinating to see if it is, to be fair. I think Liverpool, next season with Naby Keita, for example, with a clever recruitment, could push City a bit more than they did this year. Yeah, I think if Van Dijk, for example, had signed for Liverpool in the summer and now in January, I'm sure Liverpool will be much closer to City than they are right now. I think City would have still won the league, but I think Liverpool would have a good push. You could expect maybe Mourinho, United to strengthen the squad again. Chelsea with a new manager, probably. It'll be interesting to see what they do. So I think there will be more challenges next season for City. And the bar is set so high this year. Imagine if they keep beating records of more points, more goals, etc., etc. The bar will be really, really high next season. But you can expect them to sign couple of players as well and be even stronger next season than this season. So it's just going to be a fascinating season next year as well.
You mentioned those records. Of course, this is what Manchester City can do. 32 wins, 100 points, 107 goals, a goal difference of plus 78. Those will be all records when it comes to Premier League history. Been a strange old week, hasn't it, for City, of course, with that exit in the Champions League. An interesting quote from Pep Guardiola saying that the Premier League is harder to win than the Champions League. We asked you over on Twitter whether you not agree with that. 34% said yes. 66% said no. Julian, where do you stand on this?
I'll have to agree with our, with our viewers and listeners. I like Pep a lot. I don't think the Premier League is harder to win than the Champions League. Yeah, okay, you have to be very consistent over the whole season in 38 games, and his argument is saying that you can have one bad game in the Champions League and you're out. But in the Champions League, you play a team far stronger than 90% of the teams you're going to face in the Premier League. So I think all in all, surely the Champions League is still harder to win.
Smoke and mirrors here from Pep. Paul, is he right?
A little bit of smoke and mirrors, but no, he's not right. I think that to win the Champions League is harder. I just feel that I get where he's coming from initially with the start of the Champions League, with the qualification and so on and so forth. But when you get to the sharp end, I mean, you just look at the football that has been delivered up over the last few weeks in those quarterfinals. Absolutely sensational football.
What would you prefer to have won back in your day, the League or the European Cup?
Well, the values were different in my day. I mean, it was only two competitions. It was three. It was FA Cup, the League, and the Europa League or the European Cup. So, I mean, obviously, you always want to win a European Cup, but unfortunately, we didn't do that. But we won.
What path have you taken me down? That was a simple question.
It's not a simple question.
It's a simple question.
It's not a simple question because.
Do you want to win the League
because
or the
it was
European
different in
Cup?
my day. It was different because of the values of each tournament. The FA Cup, the value of the FA Cup nowadays is not what it used to be.
But the League was still the League, and the European Cup was still the European Cup.
And if you were League champions, you went into the Europa League. The European Cup, sorry. So it's totally different. So the values of each competition.
So you're just not going to give me an answer?
I'll give you an answer, winning the league.
Right, there we go. Goodness gracious me.
But look, you don't understand what I'm saying, Danny. You don't understand what I'm saying about the value of each tournament.
I think it's very different.
It was different.
Of course. Shaka, when you were playing, what would you prefer to have won? The League or the Champions League?
Anything.
Yeah.
Milk Cup.
The League. The League will always has been and always will be, always should be your bread and butter, and that's what you set out to win.
So
first.
do you agree with Pep? Is it harder to win the League than the Champions League?
It's a different demand, but no, I think it's harder to win the Champions League.
It was interesting ahead of the clash against Juventus, Zinedine Zidane. He's French, you're French, Jules. Let's go to you, shall we? Talking about this. And he said basically, look, I think it's more important to win La Liga than it is the Champions League. But if you speak to Barcelona fans now, I reckon most of them would trade places with Real Madrid if you ask them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't really know why Zidane is going that way. Maybe because after 2 winning the Champions League, and albeit winning the La Liga last season as well, let's not forget it, he was a bit bored of the Champions League and he fancied another La Liga. I don't know, and maybe he values a bit more the consistency of winning a league, as an achievement for you as a manager and your team than delivering in the Champions League. I don't know, but I always thought him, of all people, would pick the Champions League over the league.
No, you see, the league is your bread and butter. And that's what, I think that's the point that Zidane is trying to make here. I think it's also the fact that there's that big a gap between Real Madrid and Barcelona right now kind of shifts the focus a little bit. If this were tight, if the La Liga race were tight and Barcelona went out, as they did in the quarterfinals, you can say, well, we're going to focus on the league now. If you give players the option at this stage, a tight title race, you have to go out to the Champions League now, but you're going to win the league. More times than not, I think players